Welcome to A Chef's Grimoire, Spring. Today we'll be working with the Chariot. We're going to get into the cooking and the beautiful menu that I have planned for this card in just a minute, but prior to that we're going to take a deep dive into the card itself and learn about the symbolism, learn about all of the aspects that it holds and why it's prominent in the major arcana. If this is something you'd like to skip, then I have timestamps in the video in the description, and you can move forward or backwards or repeat or go slow, go fast, however you want to watch the video. But we're going to get into the card now. As always, I'm going to start with our major arcana page. It always is helpful to see where we are in the journey. The Fool, we started, and we're in this line. The Magician, High Priestess, Empress, Emperor, Hierophant, Lovers, and now the Chariot. You can see the Chariot is the last of the 7 cards in the first line of the major arcana. That means the Chariot is a good time to reflect on all the things that we were taught in the beginning of the journey from all of these members of the major arcana. So in learning about what this card symbolizes, we have to know what came before it. Let's go to the page and we'll take a look. Well, here we are in the Chariot world. And I'm going to start with continuing on the Fool's journey. I'll read all of the script, and then we'll talk about the symbolism. Driven with a focus on a new future and not taking anything at face value any longer, the Fool is now filled with a desire to overcome any obstacles in their way of personal growth and plan a path towards enlightenment and manifestation of their dreams. At the edge of the river that lay just outside the civilized village beyond it, the Fool meets the charioteer. He teaches the Fool that just as the moon controls the tides of the ocean, the Fool holds imaginary reins to control the conscious and subconscious of their mind in order to keep their eye on the target. The Fool reflects on their journey thus far. They have learned to actively create and take action with the tools that they were given. Duality is in everything, and one must tap into their wisdom and connection to the higher realms when necessary, all the while taking care to ground and nourish the soul in order to bring calm and protection to the physical self. Logic and emotion, and being organized and altruistic, are necessary to lead when called to do so in order to learn our place in society and navigate the secrets it holds. But human connection plays a very large role in the path forward. Are all the pieces in place to meet the new challenges ahead while keeping pure essence of oneself in check? Looking upwards at the North Star, to the Fool, that seems like the perfect place to start. There is a lot of symbolism in this card. The astrological sign or that corresponds with the Chariot is Cancer. Cancer is a sign that is known for peace in action. It's ruled by the moon, and its element is water. The symbol for the sign of Cancer is a glyph that looks like this, and it literally looks like a wheel in motion. The numerology for this card is 7. 5 plus 2 equals 7. Now, when you put it into the Roman numerals like this, it almost looks like a chariot. You've got the chariot itself and the 2 horses or the 2 animals that pull the chariot. Now, when we talk about 7, and I know for all of the other cards, I didn't really touch too much on astrology and numerology, simply because I really wanted to focus on the cards themselves. But when we get to the Chariot, it's such an important aspect of the card that we can't bypass it. 1 through 7 are where all the values are formed. They're a combination of all of the numbers so far. So keep that in mind as we go forward. We also need to take into consideration this card and the teachings before it, as we were talking about with the major arcana. The Magician is the house. That's the 4 corners or the elements. They are learning about actively creating and learning how to take action with your gifts. The High Priestess is very correlated with this card. She also is ruled by the moon, learns about your duality for the first time, so that there's duality in everything. If there's a black, there's a white. If there's a beginning, there's an end. She also teaches something that we take further with the Chariot, which is to stand still before moving forward. The Empress, she's the field, the shield, the scepter. Nourishment is grounding, the element of earth. The Emperor has, he's sitting, if you remember, he was sitting on a stone throne. And if you see here, the Chariot looks like it's also made of stone or concrete. Well, how does something like that be fluid? Good question. The Emperor also had a river in the depiction that I did for him. The river is all about emotions, going back to the Cancer sign, and Cancer being ruled by the moon, which is the element of water. Water is very emotional, so it always plays a part in anything that is stationary, not moving, part of the subconscious. You get the idea. When the Hierophant comes into play, we're learning about our place in society and all the secrets that society has, learning how to navigate them. And then with the Lovers, well, we're meeting and starting to form relationships and finding out what's missing within ourselves. When we get to the Chariot, it's about taking the driver's seat and learning about your inner highs and your inner lows. We're going back to the stone chariot or the concrete chariot. And everything about this card is motion while being stationary. You can see there's no reins to, make the horses, or in this depiction, Sphynx, go forward. He's doing it with his mind. The Sphynx are sitting down. They're not in motion either. Also, the charioteer's legs are not exposed. His arms are exposed, his head is exposed, his body is exposed. But the thing that would bring him to motion are not exposed. In this picture from the Marseille deck, it's very similar to the Chariot in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. However, this one I found really great because you could see the chariot wheels. They're not alongside the chariot. Instead, they're standing up behind the chariot, which means, first of all, it's not physically possible for the chariot to move with the wheels that way. When we get to the actual components of this card, we've got the rider of the chariot, the charioteer, who is the higher self. We've got the horses, or in this case, sphinxes, that are the senses and symbolize this lifetime. And then the mind are the reins. So the reins are not here. Instead, he's using his mind to make everything go into motion. Many people believe that at this point in the journey of the Fool, they're being taken by a divine timing. And timing goes into the stars on the canopy and behind the head of the charioteer. Stars are all about the subconscious, again, going into a moonlit night with the stars in the sky. And it's all about the new path that you're going is under a canopy of divine timing. So one of the things we talked about was the house. The house. So it's depicted in many ways on this page. In the card itself, the house is the chariot. So he's inside the house. The house also is the body of the charioteer. And I put houses in the background. So in other words, the charioteer has not gone into intertwining themselves into the village just yet. So they're on the outskirts of civilization. We don't get into what the civilization part of life or project or whatever you're playing the fool at is until we get to the second row of the major arcana. So this is the cusp. This is what brings us to the second row. And physically, you can see civilization is there. Charioteer is probably on their way to civilization. I also wanted to put civilization in the background because we're leaving the teachings of the Hierophant and the lovers. And that goes into very comforting situations. The Hierophant came from an institution. Institutions are very structured and secure. The emperor, his realm was very secure. The lovers, you're in with a group that's part of the institution and learning about relationships, which kind of teeter the security a little bit. But the chariot brings us out of society that we haven't conformed to yet. The field. This card also has a buzzword called the field. And what that is basically making the best of your situation, increasing your field of view, and having a higher perspective. So going back to the Empress, and when she had all of that gorgeous earthen symbolism all around her, I put the wheat that's growing in front of the fence. The fence is the barrier that the charioteer will break through to get to society. The wheat is a thriving society, knowing that it's just beyond the fence is food at any time. And the wheat goes back to increasing your field view. This is just a symbolization of that. You can look beyond the fields to see where you're going. The fence is all about breaking the limits that bind you or the limits that hold you back. And the charioteer, there is no limits in front of them. They are raring to go. On the head of the charioteer, he wears a crown, which is similar to our Empress and our Emperor and the Hierophant. They're all crowned, which brings them into a higher perspective, authoritarian role. The charioteer also wears a laurel wreath on their head, which the Empress also wore, and that depicts or is symbolized for fertility. So fertility of the mind, fertility for the mind to take you to places. So the crown, going back to the crown, the star is a 8-pointed star, which is like the North Star. So that basically is, again, going back to where the Fool decides that that's the best place to start. It comes from the crown on the charioteer's head. There's an 8-pointed star. The moons on his shoulders go back to our friend, the High Priestess. Also, the fact that the charioteer is ruled by the moon, being that they're Cancer. The square in the middle of the protective chest plate that is on the charioteer. This square also goes back to the 4 cardinal signs, the 4 signs in the zodiac, the fixed signs. They're also the elements. So we have the element of earth, fire, water, and air. The sphinxes, we have a black sphinx and a white sphinx. Now, sphinxes are known to be gatekeepers. They usually were set in front of very precious tombs, and no one could enter unless they got past the riddle that the Sphinx asked them. So they turn everything into a different perspective that you need to use your mind to solve. That's why these guys are here, perfect for this card. They also, this and the symbolism on the chariot itself symbolize the 4 fixed signs in astrology. So the feet of the sphinxes are on grass, they're grounded, and they are the correlation to Taurus, which is an earth sign. We have the breasts of the sphinx here. Breasts are the body part that's associated with Aquarius. We have the eagle wings, which are representative of Scorpio. And then the heads of the sphinxes are almost like lions, which is Leo. The 4 fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. Going back to the symbolism of masculine, feminine, we have the symbol here is a peg in the hole, which is the peg being masculine, the hole being feminine. Also with the sphinxes, we have black, we have white, duality, but black is consciousness and white is subconsciousness, masculine, feminine. The charioteer also wears armor, similar to the emperor. He had armor under his flowing robes of red. That means that unlike the emperor, who is ready to stand up and fight at any time, which the charioteer also is known to do and should do, in this case, the armor is protecting the chest, which holds the heart. It's a protective energy field almost, and goes back to our Empress card, who also had a shield with the astrological symbol of Venus on it. It's just protection, which, going back to the motion of the charioteer, is under divine timing or divine rule. They also are protected by the divine. And again, going back to astrological, this is the sign of Cancer, which the crab is the symbol for, in addition to that glyph. But the crab also wears armor to protect their soft body underneath. The charioteer also holds a wand of fire, or a scepter. Again, going back to the Empress, had a scepter. Hers had the globe of the world on top. The Emperor held an ankh and a globe in his other hand. Now, if you put the globe on top of the ankh, it would be something like this. And the Hierophant also had a 3-tiered scepter. His signified the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, or the pathway to heaven. The charioteer, the top of his scepter, is a flame, fire. It means passion. It means focus. It means lighting things up, bringing enlightenment. Lastly, we have the 4 pillars which hold the canopy up. The canopy is a protection over the head, which is the guiding force of the way forward. It's the protection of the stars that are the divine timing. But what holds them up is very structured. It's the stone or concrete pillars. Now, going all the way back to the high priestess, she had 2 pillars on either side of her. Those pillars were established strength that you need to cross through to the higher realms. The pillars play a part here in being what's holding up the protection of the higher realms. They symbolize the rotation of the cycles of heaven, and therefore, going back to divine timing, the card is telling a story of the cycles of time and the movement of time. Just like wheels, they're moving, and the wheel of the year and the wheel of the zodiacal signs. Wheels play a huge part in this, but funny enough, you don't see them. Now, how does all of this play a part with cooking? Well, the charioteer was a little difficult to plan a menu around, but I did go back to the fact that they are ruled by water. That's their element. And I thought with the river here, wheat growing, a very prosperous civilization is in the future of the charioteer or the fool. I thought taking our menu from the water, from the ocean, would be a perfect place to start. So on our menu today, we have a lemon butter scallops with vegetables, shrimp stuffed calamari, and white chocolate moon pies. This is our mise en place for our scallops. We have capers, butter, a zucchini, lemon, asparagus, and shredded carrots. With the scallops, there is a muscle that's attached to some, not all, but you want to make sure they look wet but dry to the touch. Just peel that muscle off and set it aside. You're going to inspect all your scallops this way. Next, we're going to prepare our zucchini. I only need about half for the amount of scallops I have, but we're going to cut it into about 1-inch rounds, just like that. Next, with the asparagus, I only want the tops. The stalks I'll leave and maybe roast for another meal. To the pan that's hot, I'm going to add a little butter and add the zucchini seasoned side down and cook until they're deeply golden brown, just like that. When they're finished, you're going to take them off heat and put them on a plate. I have a 175-degree oven ready for them to keep warm. I'm going to wipe out the pan of any residual grease. Add another fresh pat of butter. A little olive oil. This helps the butter to not burn so readily. And then we're going to saute our asparagus tips. The whole process will probably take about 2 minutes. You're looking for them to turn that gorgeous color of green. Add them to the warm plate with the zucchini and keep them warm. In goes the carrots. If the butter hasn't browned, you can continue to use the same butter that you cooked the asparagus in. But again, you're looking to wilt the carrots or until they look a little more soft and not as raw. Take them out of the pan now and keep them warm. Wiping out the pan and adding a fresh pat of butter, we're now going to add our scallops, seasoned side down. You can move them around a little bit. You do want space between them. And then just let them cook. Give them a good seasoning of salt and pepper on the second side. And when the edges look golden brown, time to flip. Beautiful. You know they're done when they're firm to the touch. So we're going to build the pan sauce now. I'm going to add another pat of butter, the capers, and a good squeeze of lemon juice. Beautiful. Done. To plate, I'm going to take 3 of my zucchini and lay them on the plate in the center. And I'm going to top them with 3 of the scallops. Next, I'm going to top them with some of the carrots. And lastly, 2 pieces of the asparagus tops. Finally, we're going to drizzle the whole dish with that beautiful sauce. Okay, first up, scallops. A lot of people don't like to cook scallops, or they're afraid to cook scallops, thinking that they're going to overcook them and they'll become rubbery. That's the case with bay scallops, in my opinion. Bay scallops, you literally throw into a soup, stew, saute pan seconds before it comes off the stovetop, because they do get rubbery. They get to be, you know, these little hard pellets. But if you throw them in literally the last couple seconds before you remove from heat, and they cook in the residual heat, they're like little jewels. Now, these sea scallops, on the other hand, they're much more forgiving. They'll let you keep them in the pan until they get that gorgeous, crusty fond on the outside, and and then you turn them over. And as with anything you sear, nobody that I know of takes something that's seared that looks beautiful up in presentation side and turns it over to see the second side. Nobody. So work on the presentation side and get it nice and golden brown. Then flip, and if it's not golden brown on the second side, oh well, it's going to be good. All right. You know, last week we were talking about pairings with the lovers. There are a few foods that go together so well, no matter what you do with them to make it different, it doesn't work. So, scallops and butter. Don't do anything else. The lemon on there is very nice. Paired with the vegetables, superior. And cooked perfectly. They're very tender. Just delicious. Very nice. Oh, and the main reason I did this was because, let's see if I can do it. It's like a chariot wheel. Yum. For our mise en place for the stuffed calamari, we've got chopped shrimp and the tentacles of the calamari, an egg, pepper, sourdough breadcrumbs, lemon juice, lemon zest, salt, anchovy paste, and garlic. I have some pesto cubes that I froze from last summer, parsley, and Parmesan. This couldn't be easier. To make the filling, you're going to add all of the ingredients I just mentioned into a bowl. The recipe calls for half an egg, so to do that, you're going to crack an egg into the bowl, give it a good whisk, and then you're just going to pour half of that into the mixture. Give everything a good stir after you add your pepper, and we're going to follow that with 3 tablespoons of a good olive oil. I had the fishmonger prep these calamari bodies for me. I just asked them to pull the cartilage out and separate the tentacles from the bodies. You're going to stuff 3/4 of the way full, and I find using my fingers the best way to do this. You're going to do that with all the bodies. And then I didn't have toothpicks, so I took the ends of those dollar store skewers you can buy, and I just pulled off the tops so that I could have something to secure the tops of the bodies with. Just like that. Now to a hot pan, you're going to add your olive oil. And as soon as the olive oil's in, go ahead and add your calamari bodies. They'll start to fry right away if your pan was hot before you added the oil. You're going to lay them in the pan, finding a pan that would fit them all in one layer. And let them cook probably around 5 or 6 minutes until they're golden-ish, but also what you really want is for them to be opaque white, like that. Cook the second side maybe a minute or 2, and then you remove them to a plate. We're going to make a pan sauce now for the calamari. Into the residual oil, we're going to add garlic and deglaze with some white wine after the garlic has cooked maybe a minute or 2. Reduce that wine, add your red pepper flakes, salt, and some stems of basil. I have some canned plum tomatoes that I just mushed up with my hands, and we're going to add those into the sauce. Give it a good stir, get everything distributed nicely. Add a little bit of water, and now the calamari goes back in. See how the sauce is just at the bubble for a boil? Once the calamari is in and all the residual liquid is poured in, we're going to cover, turn the heat down, and simmer 45 minutes. Pastina is just as simple as what you remember. Get a nice pot of water that's salted, add your pastina, and then drain well. Add some butter to the pot, add the pastina back in, and give it a good stir. Taste for seasoning. To plate our calamari, the first thing we have to do is remove those skewers. It shouldn't be too difficult. They pull fairly easily. We're going to take a nice portion of the pastina and set it on the plate. And then we're going to take 3 nice pieces of the calamari and set them right on top. Now this is a dinner portion. If you wanted to do a lighter portion, say for lunch, maybe you just do 1 or even 2. To that, we're going to spoon over that gorgeous sauce. So here's our calamari. Now, calamari, it's one of those interesting pieces of food where you can cook it super fast, meaning we've all gotten the calamari that is rubbery in the restaurants. That's the fried calamari. But, you know, that's because they cooked it too long. So you either cook it super quick, or like in a deep fried oil, or you braise it for a long time. Chuck steak is another one of those examples. You can sear it like a steak, or you can braise it for hours. Either way, it's going to be tender. So this is our stuffed calamari. Can you see the inside? Isn't that great? Yeah? All right, let's see how it tastes. I can feel that it's tender just the way my fork goes into it. Really nice. The lemon is lovely. Don't leave it out. Really needs it. Calamari is one of those things, it doesn't have much flavor on its own. But it's got a lot of texture. Really nice. All right, I'm going in for this one. And I like that it's on, the reason I chose pastina, did you used to have pastina when you were a kid? Your mom used to make pastina with butter? I think my sister and I lived on that for like ever. And I told my mother I was going to be making pastina. She's like, I haven't made that in years. Probably not since we were like 5. But the reason I chose it is because it's little stars. So these bodies that are filled to capacity are on a pool of stars. Isn't that nice? This is a lovely dish. Great as a main dish, great as a starter. You could do this as a starter, or you could do this as your main with the scallops as your starter, the way we're doing it today. Either way, delicious. Yeah, the lemon is gorgeous. The sourdough adds a nice tang too. The sourdough crumb. Yeah, I wouldn't change anything to the filling. I think it's super flavorful. Pungent with the garlic. The tomato sauce definitely boiled down as we did, so that the reduction of the sauce will make it more intense. So the tomatoes really add a nice pop. Yeah. When was the last time you made stuffed calamari? Well, if you haven't made in a while, try it again. It's worth it. This is one of those recipes where you can put your blinders on, get yourself a glass of wine, put your blinders on, get in the chariot, and go. We have flour, graham cracker crumbs, baking powder and baking soda, butter, an egg, brown sugar, sprinkles for finishing the cookies, and marshmallow fluff. We have white chocolate chips or chocolate wafers. And building the dry ingredients, you just pour all the dry into a bowl. Graham crackers, flour, baking soda, baking powder, and a pinch of salt. To a stand mixer, you're going to add your brown sugar and the softened butter and cream those together. We're going to add the egg and vanilla. Now we're going to add the dry mixture a little at a time until it all comes together. You're going to start to knead the mixture with your hands, or at least get what was dry at the bottom incorporated to the mass of dough. You want it to not be crumbly, but instead hold together and form a ball, like this. Now I'm going to roll it to about 11-inch diameter. That's 1/4 inch thick. At some point it's going to start to stick to your countertop, but don't worry, there's a lot of butter in there, so I'll show you the trick on how to get it up and off the counter without harming the shapes. With a 3-inch cookie cutter, you're going to cut as many rounds as you can from that section of dough. And here's the trick. Instead of picking up the circles, we're just going to take all of that dough in between the circles out. And with a fish spatula, I'm going to go in for my circle. There it is. We're going to set them on the cookie sheet about 2 inches apart. Now all those scraps you're going to re-roll and do the whole process again until you have 20 cookies. We're going to bake them at 350 for about 10 minutes. Once the cookies are completely cooled, you're going to turn one upside down so that bottom is facing you. And we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of that fluff. Now, if I had better judgment, I would have greased my finger and maybe even the spoon when I did this, but it all worked out. Now, no need to spread that around. You just take another cookie top and press it onto the fluff. And you're going to do that with all cookies until you have 10 of them. To make the glaze that the cookies are going to go into, you're going to take your white chocolate chips and melt them. Now, you can melt them in your microwave. I only had the stovetop. I don't have a microwave. So I did them here, and they turned a little bit of a golden brown versus staying completely white. But you're going to pop your cookie into the beautiful vat of chocolate, just like that. And you're going to flip and coat. I'm using 2 forks, which is very helpful. And you're going to remove the cookie onto a wire-racked sheet tray. Whoops. There we go. And you're going to let the excess chocolate drip off. Now, while the cookies are still wet, that's when you're going to decorate them. So you might need to stop in between coating cookies to do this. Look at that. So fun. Moons. Half moons. Moons. They were so fun to make. Let's see how they taste. Yeah. Nice. And they set. They're not getting my hands all sticky. Mmm. Wow. Wow. They're awesome. Super sweet. But not so sweet. The sweet has a river flowing through it, so to speak. So there's sweet from the marshmallow. The chocolate, I kept my chocolate. Okay, so let's talk about white chocolate for a moment. When you make this recipe, melt your chocolate in the microwave. I don't have a microwave, so I had to do it on the stovetop, which is how you saw me do it. And I started it too early in the process. I started melting my chocolate before the cookies were even baked. That's what I get for not reading the recipe. So I took them off heat, but what happened was the bottom started to turn like a butterscotch color. And white chocolate just seems to, turn that color if it's heated too much. So that's why these aren't pure white like I was hoping. But let me tell you, the butterscotch flavor is very nice. Very nice. So you could, melt your chocolate a little longer and get a butterscotchy finish on it. I like it. Mm-hmm. And what you're really doing, Since the graham crackers are already cookies, what you're basically doing in mixing it with the egg and the flour and everything else is turning them back into cookies. So they retain their crunch, which is really nice. You know, a lot of these moon pies sometimes, well, I don't know about moon pies, but when you get the whoopie pies, they're soft. They're like cake. They're okay. I like a crunch. Sorry, just do. Okay, I'm gonna finish this, and then we'll talk about the card. Okay, we learned about the card. I finished my cookie, and we're ready to talk about the whole video and how it all comes together and cycles back now to the meaning and what to prepare and how to menu plan for the Chariot card. So again, I took the astrological meaning of the card or the correlations of the card in order to do this menu. The Chariot is ruled by the element of water, and the ruler of Cancer is the moon. So with all of that, easy peasy to plan a menu, right? The scallops, wagon wheels, or chariot wheels. The stuffed calamari is the stuffed body. The body, which is also the chariot, right? When we talked about all the symbolism of where the body is in the card itself. And then finally the moon with the moon pies. So by now, having 7 cards into the video series and the 7 pages of a chef's grimoire, we're understanding the values of cooking. The menu planning aspect is basically just summing up the elements of the card and picking the best things that pop out, the things that pop out that you can bring over into the culinary world. That's the whole premise of a chef's grimoire. Learning, a book about learning the knowledge of the cards and fusing them with culinary. The Chariot is no exception. It is the last card in the first line of the major arcana. It's about our consciousness. It sums all of the other cards up in its full-scale epic value. And you can't drive the Chariot without the knowledge of all the other cards in the driver's seat with you. So that said, when you turn this tarot card, it is about action. It is about moving forward. But it's all here. It's all your will, from your thoughts, from your will to move forward. All the obstacles that are in the way of you going forward to make what's in your head a reality, to move forward to that destination. That's where willpower comes in. Gotta have the will. And that's what this card is all about. So in any situation, in a recipe, let's say, you turn the Chariot card. Okay, well, you consciously are aware of the recipe, you understand its components, you understand how to go about the execution of the recipe. Maybe there's a few things you're not sure of, but you have the will, drive, and desire to do it. Plus, you know that you might have promised that you were going to bring something to the next potluck, and this is what you want to bring, and all of that. So with will, determination, from your mind, your will, to the plate. That's what this card is all about. I hope you found value in everything we've learned today, and know that the charioteer is there. He's always there, always has a back seat or a front seat for you to hop in and take a ride with. They're the ones, which is really us, who you want to hold the reins. See you next week.